Welcome, Dr. Raker. Dr. James Raker is our guest here on TIC Talk, right? So welcome, Dr. Raker. You have been writing a consistent article the last several months on occupational rehabilitation and occupational medicine for DCs.
Correct.
So can you tell us a little bit about yourself? How did you get into this niche type of program, and how do you recommend it? What is it that it provides chiropractors for their patients? How can they help their patients using this approach?
Great. Let me tell you, the short background is I've been working for about 32 years, but somewhere about the second year of practice, one of my patients was a truck driver, and he brought in this form, and he said, "I need this form filled out. Can you do it?" And at the bottom of the form, it was a DOT physical, and at the bottom of the form, it said chiropractor. So I said, "Yeah, it looks like I can do it." So I did the physical, and I found out a few other patients, truck drivers, had to have that same thing. So I started doing these physicals, and that was my start in this niche market of doing DOT physicals. It kind of rolled from there. They started complaining about the fact that they now had to do drug tests. And I went and read the rules, and we could get certified to do drug testing as DCs. And then alcohol testing came into play, and it just kind of kept rolling. And then from that point on, I had outside companies that had nothing to do with truck driving call me and say, we see that you do DOT physicals and drug screens. Can you do physicals and drug screens for our employees? And I said, sure. And it kept ramping up from there. So this whole field of occupational medicine was really pretty silent to our profession up until about 5-6 years ago. DOT physicals kind of became more known, but that is the very tip of the iceberg in occupational medicine. We're doing over 25 services. They're all cash because occupational medicine has nothing to do with sick people, has nothing to do with insurance. It's things that the government mostly mandates that employers must do and pay for their employees. So there's no convincing someone to do this, and there's no problems with money. They've already got the money budgeted. The only thing you have to do in occupational medicine is convince an employer to spend their money with you instead of a doctor down the street. And that's very easy to do.
Well, that is fascinating. Now, where did you start this with the DOT physicals? What state were you in at the time?
I was in Arkansas, but the actual federal law has had chiropractors listed as doing these physicals from even before I started, and it's a federal law. So it can be done in all 50 states. There's only 3 states that the scope of practice does not allow chiros to do the DOT physicals, and that's Washington State, Michigan State, and New York State. But other than the physicals, when I said there was 25 or so other things to do, even in those 3 states, they can do most of the other 25 services.
So you don't have to be DOT certified in order to be able to do the occupational medicine then, or is that a requirement?
Well, the DOT certification is to do DOT physicals. So obviously, if you're not doing a DOT physical, if you're just doing a physical for a company, you don't have to be DOT certified.
Mm-hmm.
And there is in total for the 25 services, there's 5 that require a certification. That is the DOT physicals, to do DOT drug tests, to do DOT alcohol tests, and then on a federal level from OSHA and NIOSH to do hearing testing and to do pulmonary function testing. Those 5 need certifications. Now, here's the good news for DCs. Number 1, you can do all 5. And like I said, the 3 states that you can't do DOT physicals, you can do the other 4 things, no problem. And here's even better. A trained medical assistant, just like any CA, can get it all. That can get 4 the only certification they can't get is the certification to do physicals. But a trained CA can do everything else I teach, and the doctor does not even have to be in the room.
Wow.
That sounds awesome. Yeah.
This sounds really amazing. It's Jacqueline over here. I know that I wanted to jump in and tell you because this sounds amazing. I'm thinking for chiropractors who are, to me, it sounds like then they could either use this as a marketing tool to get new patients who are coming in for the occupational medicine tests, and then, or, the DHE test. And then also, because I know that's a big factor, right? Chiropractors don't want to feel like they're giving up their bread and
Right.
butter, which is the adjustment and all
Right.
they do there.
Now let me tell you something exciting. When I teach I used to teach this out on the road. It was 16 hours, a full Saturday and Sunday. I've now videotaped that and boiled it down to 12 hours that people can do on a webinar online. But when I teach this, remember the old days? I'm going to say old. When I got out of school 30 years ago, there was the thing about going and doing spinal screening, standing in the mall, standing at the fair, standing somewhere doing spinal screenings for free, sweating all day long. You screen 100 people. You're lucky if you got 10 of them to say they wanted to sign up, and maybe one showed up at your office. Right? You did it all for free.
Chicken
Right.
dinners too, right?
When I teach this, I tell my doctors, how would you like to, instead of doing spinal screenings for free, what about doing like 50 spinal screenings and getting paid about 65 to 85 to $125 to do each spinal screening, so you get paid to do spinal screenings? I have converted, I don't know, I'm not going to say I've converted like 80 to 90% of the guys coming through for DOT physicals, because some of them are in good shape and some of them are not, but even some of the not ones don't want to deal with me. Maybe they're from out of state. But if they're local drivers and they come in and I'm doing their DOT physical and they've got neck problems or back problems that are kind of obvious when they start moving and bending and you're checking all that, I've talked to many of them and said, hey, have you ever done anything? Have you ever, and they talk about maybe getting medicine or maybe they've been to physical therapy. But if they've never been to a chiropractor, I'm like, going to a chiropractor might be good for this. And the funny part is they don't even maybe know I'm a chiropractor at the time. They may think I'm an MD, even though it says so on my jacket. And they're like, really? You think chiropractic is good? I go, chiropractic is great. It helps bunches of people. So even some of the truck drivers that were from out of state that I said that to, I've now promoted them to chiropractic, even though it's not going to be my patient. But I do get a lot of patients from this. So it's like getting paid to do spinal screening and picking up new patients all the time.
Wow, that to me sounds amazing. I'm just listening to you, thinking about all this stuff, getting better and healthier. I had to go from seated to standing with my computer here. But very cool stuff. Instead of paying to have the doctors, now you're getting them to pay to actually, get a foot in the door to chiropractors. To me, I think that's amazing. How many years have you been doing this?
Well, like I said, I did my first DOT physicals probably 30 years ago, and it just kind of ramped up from there. And it really took off when there was a safety guy that came to me from an outside company that was the first person to ask me to do non-DOT stuff. He said, we don't have any truck drivers, but I got 450 employees, and I need pre-employment physicals, I need drug testing. And he was the one that actually then got me into some other things. He said, by the way, we're under a mandate that every year we have to do hearing testing. Can you do that?
Mm-hmm.
And I had to go do a little digging and read up on some rules, but I found that was very easy to get certified and do. Started doing the hearing testing. Then he asked me about doing pulmonary function testing for all their people that wear masks, for like painters that wear masks, or if they're grinding in dust, they have to wear a respirator mask. And I found out that not only there's three parts to that. There was an OSHA questionnaire that must be reviewed by a licensed healthcare professional, which we are, so we could get paid for that. We had to do a pulmonary function test, which is where you make them blow into a machine and it measures how much air comes out of their lungs. And then you have to do a mask fitting where they put their mask on and you have to ensure that it seals using like smoke as a irritant gas to make sure it doesn't leak. And you get paid for all three parts of those. And those are all mandatory by the government for these companies to pay and do. In fact, I've got to go do 330 hearing tests at this company. It's at they're a contractor at an Army depot, and I've got to go do 330 hearing tests. Now, when you start getting into these kind of contracts, literally, I have checks, and this is where it gets nice. None of this is insurance, right? There's no insurance billing. It's they order the test. The people either come to me, or if it's a big group like this, I go to them. I do the work. I submit an invoice, and usually within 2 weeks, I get paid a check. I've got many checks now, over $10,000 for a single day of work. I have several checks in the $20,000 range, and I have 2 checks over $30,000 for, now those took me about 3 days or 4 days. But we went to one company at the beginning of the year that had a problem with some people coming in with COVID, and we were doing the instant COVID test. It's just like, it's quick, like a little nasal swab, and everybody's seen and done those now. But we went out there and we did 200 COVID tests in 4 hours. We charged them $100 per test. So we made 20 grand in 4 hours. It took me and a few assistants 4 hours to do that. Now, do you know of any chiropractor that make $20,000 in 4 hours cash? It's pretty hard to do. With adjustments, you'd have to be like a machine gun adjusting on that many people. But this was simple and easy. And the fact that the trained assistants really do most of the work. All I did that day was walk in a circle. We had like 4 desks, and I just walked in a circle and said positive, negative, while they were doing the swabbing. We got it all done in 4 hours and got a $20,000 check. You can't beat that.
James, this sounds like a fantastic opportunity, especially for someone trying to figure out how they can increase their footprint in their area. How long does something like this take a guy who makes a decision today? I want to do this. James seems like the kind of guy who's going to lead me down the road here. How long does it take them from the time they make that decision to be able to implement it? Do you have kind of a timeline for someone?
I can give you some timelines. I mean, there's some obvious variables here on where you live. I've got guys in little bitty towns. I have a guy in a town of 12,000 people that's now doing all OccMed because he went over $1 million in OccMed. Here's what's funny. Before I answer your question, I'll throw out a couple of statistics. Number one, there are 20 million, give or take, DOT workers in this country, worth about $3 billion in DOT services. And that's the small side of the pie. Non-DOT is every other worker, and it's virtually every other worker. So there's 180 million workers that are in non-DOT, and they're worth about 10 times as much. So about $30 billion. So it's about $33 billion. So when somebody says, how do I know this is in my town? Because most of the time when people hear about OccMed or they kind of think DOT, they're limited in thinking DOT is truck drivers, right? Well, no, DOT has 6 divisions: trucks, trains, planes, bus, subway, ships, and pipe handlers. That's your 20 million workers. And who doesn't know somebody that's in one of those professions? They're in every town. But number 2, remember when I said it's bigger on the out of DOT side, the other side. Right. I literally do work I drug test for my bank, my grocery store. I have a contract to work with my city because all the police and firemen need physical exams. The firemen need everything. They get a hearing test, a pulmonary function test, respirator mask fits, heavy metal evaluations. They get everything. The jailers are mandated to have TB chest x-ray every year. So I'm working with my city, my county. There is state contracts. There's federal contracts to do all the different government agencies for like FBI, Border Patrol, TSA out at the airports. They all have to have drug screens and physicals. So this is massive, and it's in every single town, no matter how small. There is cops and firemen, bus drivers for the school districts have to have this. It's everywhere. So the timeline, to answer your question, is it depends on the city you're in and what's there. And it depends on the doctor's ability to, all these are easy, but there's like 30 little parts that you can do, or 25 different things that you can do. You might only want to do 3 or 4 of them, or you might want to do all 25. Or maybe there's no respirator fit test in your town at all, but you can do all the other things. So realistically, I would say if somebody said, I want to start today, how fast can I ramp this up? You can have some of it going within 30 days, and then you can have other things going within 60 or 90 days, so that by the end of 90 days, you should have some streams of income from some of these services coming in and paying you right now.
Dr. Raker, this sounds like too good of an opportunity for someone who's interested in this type of approach to not get involved. How can they contact you?
Oh, I'm easy. You can just get a hold of me at the website, which is www.mchiropractor.com. It's OccMedForDCs.com. So it's OccMedForDCS.com.
Perfect. And then now it sounds like you're doing this almost exclusively. Are you still managing a chiropractic clinic as well, or is this?
I am still 40 hours Monday through Friday in my chiropractic clinic, but here's how it works.
Oh, wow.
This is easy. Number one, all the drug screens that come in and out all day long, I never see. All I see is the check because they come in, my assistant does them, and they go out. I never have to worry about them. Number two, even the physicals. I work on patients. They get a physical ready. Now, a DOT physical, if you have an assistant doing some of the workup, takes them about 5 minutes to do the workup. Like they have to get their height, weight, blood pressure, check their vision on an eye chart, and do a whisper test for their hearing. But once they get that done, they put them in the room. They tell me it's ready. They flip out a little flag, and I look down the hallway. I see a flag down. I stop adjusting where I'm at. I go down. It takes me about 3 to 4 minutes to do my physical, and then I come back and I start adjusting. So we had a company that wanted to hire 20 new guys for a third shift. They all had to go through a litany of different tests that was about $1,000 per person. In one day, as I was adjusting my 30 normal patients, they would just work them through and do all the other tests. And then when it needed the physical, they'd flip up the flag and I'd go down and I'd do a physical. So I did my patients and 20 physicals. My assistant did all the drug tests, the hearing test, all the other things that needed to be done. And at the end of the day, I got my money from my chiropractic practice, but I got a $20,000 check for the 20 guys that all had $1,000 worth of stuff done. Got it all done in one day. Super simple, easy, cut, dry. Loved it.
Anymore, it seems like that's got to be happening with chiropractors. I mean, even seeing 30 patients a day, it helps, but it's like costs are going up too. So adding on something like this type of an approach is kind of an integrative way to amplify your practice.
Here's the thing that I tell people. I've done as many as 65 patients in a day, but what I found was, working on 65 or even more patients is easy. I can work on 100 patients a day. Can I write the notes? Can I keep up with the paperwork? Can I make sure that the billing is all correct? That's where, when I got up to that many people, I started losing money because I couldn't keep up with the paperwork and I couldn't get the bills out. Now, with OccMed, I can do a normal, what I'm going to call normal, an easy day, 30 or 40 people. My staff, who does 90% of the OccMed work, I never see it. It just happens, and then the checks roll in. I don't have to worry about it. So it's kind of like under the medical model, you have an MD that has 5 nurses. The 5 nurses do all the grunt work. He just looks at the charts and signs off on stuff for a prescription or whatever. It's time. His time is doing the doctor part. So with this, if I just do the doctor part and let my assistants do all the nurse work, I can multiply my time out. If I had enough work to where I wanted to hire 10 assistants, literally I wouldn't do anything except sign checks all day and cash them because they'd be doing all the work.
Well, tell me, what type of net and gross income are we talking about for chiropractors? Like a chiropractor who is running a clinic and in 30 days or so starts operating, what kind of percentages do you think, or dollar amounts do you think they would expect to see?
I mean, it's whatever you put into it is what you get out. Like I said, I've had 2 doctors that made so much money with the OccMed stuff. They said, I'm tired of dealing with insurance and patients, and they just dropped their patient load completely. I still love adjusting people, so I still work on patients. But money, I mean, literally, like I said, when I've made checks with $5, $10, $20,000 in a day, if you want to go out and get these contracts and do the work, I mean, you can make as much. Here, for an example, a lot of the business that we're doing is usually done by lay people. In fact, here's a good point. How much competition is there for DCs to go out and do this? Not much. And I'll tell you why. Most of the medical doctors don't do it. The medics do not hold this in a cage like they do healthcare. We don't have to get referrals for this. We don't need, and they don't have it. They don't want it. A big thing happened back in 2015. The government passed a law and said, well, before 2015, every MD, DO, DC, nurse practitioner, and PA could do DOT physicals and sign them. It was just an open thing. Anybody could do them that had that license. The government came along in 2015 and said, y'all suck. You're not doing this right. So we're gonna create a 12-hour course, and you have to pass a national test in order to get a government license to do this. Guess what happened when they said that? All the MDs said, I'm out. I don't have time for this crap. I'm done.
Right.
I'm out. They said, nurse practitioners and PAs, you go do this, but I'm out. All the MDs got out. And even when the nurse practitioners and PAs, a bunch of them didn't want to do it. So when the government, they wanted to open the door on this new certification in 2015, they said, we must have 40,000 certified doctors to keep the wheels rolling. You know how many they had in 2015? 18,000. So they had to shut it off. They said, we're going to delay it for 1 year because if we turn this off now, trucking would grind to a halt because nobody could get their physical done because there's only 18,000 people in the whole country doing this, where there used to be 500,000 or more. So they delayed it for 1 year. And when it came around the next year, they still didn't have 40,000. They had 28,000 of us certified. I was one of the first ones because I knew what was going to happen, which is exactly what did happen. All the doctors got out. All this work needed to be done. Have you ever seen a movie or a cartoon where the phone starts ringing and every time they put it down, it rings and it just rings, and it's literally where the term ringing off the hook came from? When this turned on in 2016, my phone did that. It rang 24 hours a day for about a month or two because the Budweiser distributor, the Pepsi and Coke distributors, every truck, FedEx, every trucking firm in my country, my city said, our doctor quit. He didn't get certified. There's nobody in town that's certified except for you. And
Wow.
everybody called me. Now, granted, that's past, but my last look at the statistics was there was still less than 100,000 certified DOT physical providers where there used to be 500,000. And guess what? Is the number of truck drivers going up or down? It's going up, right? Because Amazon needs trucks. We need stuff moved. Trucking is growing at 6% a year. So all the work that was going to 500,000 providers got shoved down to this small group, and it's still out there, and there's more and more and more being developed every day. So it's massive, and it's not getting smaller, it's getting larger.
Well, this is amazing. Well, tell me really quick before we wrap things up, because obviously the OccMed for DC sounds amazing, doctor. Now, I wanted to find out, tell me a little bit about your chiropractic clinic then. How do you keep fresh and keep up to date? I mean, actively involved or managing actual chiropractic cases?
Well, like I said, I still work on my chiropractic patients Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. So I'm still putting in 40 hours a week doing patient care. And that's just like any other person's practice. I just, I read and I stay up with articles and new stuff. I'm kind of a little bit of what's the word? Research nut. I read research like crazy. Anytime somebody references a research article, I have a subscription to the local medical library and I get a copy of it. And I'm a research nut, so I've got a big stack of research. So I stay on top of the chiropractic that way. But it's fun to go out and teach, go to these state associations and teach, and go out on the road and teach and open everybody's eyes. Every time I talk, it's like a room full of deer with their eyes caught in the headlights, because by the time I get done, they're staring at me going, there's so much material and I've never heard of any of this. And I'm like, I know, but it's everywhere around you. It's in every city, everywhere around you. The opportunity is yours to it's like a river of water flowing by, and all you got to do is take a bucket and start scooping money out of the river.
Sounds amazing. Any states in particular where they can find you? Are you on schedule to speak at any upcoming months?
I don't have anything that I know of. I spoke at the Louisiana Association a couple of months ago, and with Christmas and everything else, I haven't really gotten into a bigger schedule this year. And COVID kind of had me slowed down there for a couple of years, but now I'm going to start
Very.
to reach out and reestablish some ties. If anyone knows anybody from what's it, the Cairo Congress, Coxca? I think it's
Mm-hmm.
called by a new term. But if
Sure.
anybody knows anything about Coxca, please contact me. I've tried to get in touch with them. They asked for speakers, and I've sent in some information, but I've never been contacted. But I really want to speak at the big Cairo Congress so that this filters out to all the state associations. The state associations need help, and this is the way to get members in your state by providing something that actually gives them help and income. That's how you get members, is get to help them get income.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, we work with
Absolutely.
them as well and attend their annual event. So we'll get you more information on that after the show. So
Excellent.
keep, and that's now they know then they got to keep looking for you in the American Chiropractor, following up and seeing your column. And of course, thank you for listening and participating today. We definitely want to hear more and more from you in the future as well.
Hey,
Now, Dr. Ray,
I'm good at
please.
talking. Just call me and I can talk.
We sensed that, Dr. Raker. It's been very fun actually talking to you. You know, I saw on your CV that you were a ring doctor in
Yes.
Arkansas. What is
Yes,
that? How did you?
I'm the only one in Arkansas, and to my knowledge, there might be somebody else in the United States, but I'm the only chiro that had an official state-sanctioned ring doctor license. I've watched or have somewhere in the neighborhood of 600 or 700 professional boxing matches under my belt.
Oh,
How
that's
about
Where I
that?
was
amazing.
the doctor. I wasn't boxing. I was the doctor.
Yeah, no, but I mean that's cool, right? You at least got front seats.
Yeah, I got front seat. I got to sit next to George Foreman when his son Monk fought in my town in Texarkana.
That's pretty interesting. Now, what kind of a sensorial exam do they have for concussion? Are you still a ring doctor, or is that? I mean,
No, I
that's
haven't done
changing
that
so
now.
vastly in the
Yeah,
last 2 years.
the venue that was doing that, the promoter that was doing that, retired, and it kind of moved out of my system about 5-6 years ago. But it was fun. It was a simple, kind of like a pre-employment exam or a DOT exam. There was a simple exam before the fight, and if they had any concussive type symptoms after the fight, I had to go kind of recheck everybody, and it was a cool gig. It was kind of fun. There's a lot of things that I've seen, a lot of things that other people probably wouldn't want to see. Uh, but I remember one fight, a guy was winning, and he pivoted to hit somebody, and his knee buckled, and he went down. And I looked at the commissioner at that point that was sitting next to me. And I said, he just tore his meniscus in his knee. And after it got looked at and it came back to me, that's exactly what happened. He tore his meniscus. So, and he was winning. He was beating the crap out of a guy, and he just pivoted to hit wrong, and it all went bad. He lost after that. But I've seen a lot of crazy stuff. Crazy stuff.
Very interesting. Staying busy, right? So chiropractic's gotten you into all of these little different areas. I think it's been an incredible journey for you.
It's marched me into companies that I would never have gotten with. And here's the funny part. Out of the population of the United States, we'd say, less than half really know about or go to chiros, right? And the other half probably don't go because they have that weird old medical quasi, like chiropractors are quacks, never go to a chiropractor. It's that mentality. When you start doing these physicals for companies, and these people are literally forced to come see you, whether they want to or not, they end up having a little bit of a different perspective when they say, oh, you're a chiropractor and you actually do physical exams, you actually listen and do hearing tests, you actually do lung tests. It's like their eyes open. They're like, well, like you're a real doctor. And I go, yeah, I'm a real doctor. We chiros are real doctors. We do this. So it's changing the perception on a small scale with the public at large. But if we had, I tell you what, if corporate America, we have, the dentists have Crest and Oral-B, and the medics got Big Pharma to sponsor everything. We don't really have those kind of sponsors, but if we were working in a corporate medical clinic, like Amazon has a corporate medical clinic for their employees, so does Google. In fact, I think Google's got a chiro in their clinic. But if Walmart had a company clinic for all their employees and it employed a chiropractor, How hard do you think it would be for us to get a law or bill passed in Congress if Walmart stepped up behind us and said, we want that law passed? That's what we need, is the clout and the money of corporate America. And if you are a company or an occupational doctor helping corporate America, you now have clout. You now have a business and money, maybe millions or billions of dollars, depending on how big the company is, but you now have clout. And if our profession could just, OccMed is about safety and wellness. If those two words don't go with chiropractic, I don't know what does. I had somebody tell me, why are you doing this? It's not really chiropractic. I'm like, safety and wellness? That's not
Yeah, right.
chiropractic?
Public
No,
health.
this is exactly,
Yeah.
we're trying to prevent injuries and help people. This is exactly where we need to be. And if every company in America had a chiro on staff, can you imagine how much farther our profession would be just because of that, raising that bar? We're real doctors. We do real doctor stuff. We help companies. It's
Well
amazing.
done. Very good, James. I can see you're driven by passion. So thank you very much for coming on our TIC Talk today. I'm Joe Bush. This is Jacqueline Toussard. And so look for Dr. James Raker's articles in upcoming issues of the American Chiropractor magazine, as well as the most recent one in the mail right now, February 2023. Thank you, Dr. Raker. Any final words for our audience?
If you want to learn more, just go to www.occmed4dcs.com. We have tons of information on there. And then if they sign up and get with us, we literally hold their hand. My partner, Dr. Abear, and I are available literally almost 24/7 for calls, for anything they need help-wise. Our doctors feel like they get really good care. We take care of our doctors.
I love it. Perfect.